Welcome to this explainer. You know, if you follow football, you've definitely heard people say the penalty shootout is the ultimate lottery in sports. I mean, whenever a match goes the distance, you'll inevitably hear commentators call it a cruel roll of the dice, right? And the fans, well, they're always quick to blame fate or just bad luck or some kind of cosmic injustice for a really devastating loss. And honestly, for a long time, I always assumed they were right. But I was absolutely fascinated to learn that they are all entirely wrong. Seriously, a shootout is not a lottery at all.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because a shootout is actually a hyper-rational sequence of high-speed game theory, human psychology, and just cold hard numbers. We're going to answer a truly fascinating question today. Is this beloved, highly dramatic test of athletic skill actually just a statistical equation executing in real time?
So to really grasp this, we have to contrast how we normally talk about shootouts with what is literally happening on the pitch. On one hand, you have the world's view, right? The raw emotion, the players in tears, the roaring crowds, and all that deeply emotional language describing it as a cruel roll of the dice. But the part that fascinated me the most is that the reality of the situation is incredibly sterile. It's almost academic. It's a hyper-rational mathematical algorithm. The keeper isn't just guessing, and the kicker definitely isn't just praying. But to understand the math, we first need to look at the brutal reality of the physics involved.
Let's start with this number, 70. A penalty kick is taken from just 12 yards out from the goal line. When an elite professional strikes the ball, it travels at approximately 70 miles per hour. That is absolutely blistering speed over a very short distance. To put that into perspective, it's basically like trying to dodge a major league fastball in baseball, except the pitcher is standing right in your face. Now, pair that speed with this number, 0.25. That is the average human reaction time in seconds. But here is the massive problem. Because the ball is traveling at 70 miles per hour from just 12 yards out, it takes the ball less than half a second to completely cross the goal line.
So the crucial point is this. By the time a goalkeeper's eyes actually register where the ball is going and their brain processes that information and then sends a signal to their muscles to dive, it is already way too late. The physics of the situation literally dictate that the goalkeeper cannot react to the visual stimulus of the ball in flight. They must commit and they have to jump before the kick is even taken. And this specific moment, this forced early commitment, is the exact trigger that strips away the physical sport and turns the whole thing into a purely mental mathematical showdown.
And that brings us directly into the realm of game theory, specifically a classic model called matching pennies. Now sure, economists might call a shootout a zero-sum game of incomplete information, but let's break that down into simple terms. Essentially, because neither player knows what the other is about to do, they have to be totally random to avoid being predictable. If one wins, the other loses. Period. It's an unforgiving economic exchange that's just kind of masquerading as a sport.
Imagine the scenario. If the kicker shoots to their left and the keeper dives to that same side, the keeper wins. They score a point for their side while the kicker effectively gets a -1. But if the kicker shoots left and the keeper dives right, the kicker wins. What looks like this magical, heroic save on television is rarely about superhuman agility or cat-like reflexes. It's simply optimal randomization. The goalkeeper is mathematically countering the kicker by predicting their most likely move based entirely on historical data. And this brilliantly illustrates what is known in game theory as a Nash equilibrium. It essentially means that over time, as players try to outsmart each other, their choices inevitably fall into a highly predictable statistical pattern. The shootout totally stops being an open game of football and becomes a living matrix of probabilities. Every single player out there, whether they actually realize it or not, is trapped inside this mathematical framework where their choices can be mapped, graphed, and countered.
But it turns out there's a massive vulnerability here, specifically for the absolute best players in the world. This is the data trap for elite strikers. Think about it. An elite striker might spend 10, maybe 15 years perfecting a shot to the top right corner. They have absolute technical mastery over their specific favorite placement. But that technical perfection, it's actually a data trap. Statisticians are tracking every single player's historical preferences. So this incredible clinical precision actually creates diminishing returns because it creates a predictable pattern. Data-driven goalkeepers know this algorithm inside and out. So ironically, the mathematical reason penalty shootouts are often harder for elite strikers is because their clinical perfection turns their greatest weapon into a massive statistical liability.
Now you might be wondering, well, if the keeper knows your favorite side, why not just switch? Why not just kick it the other way? I mean, it sounds simple enough, right? But the players know the data exists, and the goalkeepers know the players know the data exists. This layered knowledge creates a fascinating totally agonizing psychological standoff between the kicker and the data-armed goalkeeper.
This standoff creates what we can call the mathematical loop. Under high-stakes pressure, the brain just panics. Kickers assume that keepers know their favorite side, so they decide to switch. But keepers assume that the kickers will assume this and switch, so the keepers decide to stay put to counter the switch. There are no draws here, and there are absolutely no resets. This immense, suffocating pressure actively narrows a player's shot variance. Instead of having the freedom to shoot anywhere with a clear, relaxed mind, elite strikers get trapped overthinking this exact binary loop. The pressure literally narrows their options until they completely abandon their natural, clinical technique just to try and outmath the goalkeeper.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an incredible mathematical irony. Statistically speaking, shooting straight down the middle has the highest success rate of any placement. Why? Because goalkeepers almost always dive to the left or the right to maximize their net coverage. If they don't dive, they risk looking like they aren't even trying. Yet, despite being highly optimal, players almost rarely ever shoot down the middle.
And the reason for this completely defies logic, but man, it perfectly explains human nature. Standing still, or shooting right at a goalkeeper who might just decide not to dive, feels entirely unnatural when millions of people are watching you. Human emotion and the profound fear of embarrassment completely override optimal statistical strategy. Players would rather miss spectacularly while aiming for the top corner, because it looks like a heroic, genuine attempt, than risk the absolute meme-worthy embarrassment of gently passing the ball straight into the hands of a stationary goalkeeper.
Which brings us to a really climactic question. Why does technical perfection fail in these moments? Elite, technically perfect athletes crumble in this specific matrix because a shootout doesn't reward perfect repetition, it rewards unpredictable variance. If your technical perfection means you hit the top right corner 100% of the time, well, you are 100% predictable, and the math dictates that the keeper will be waiting right there for the ball. This leads directly to the core thesis of understanding the modern shootout. Human ego is the enemy of optimal mathematics. The cold, hard logic of probability brutally punishes the human element. Whether it's the ego of relying on a signature, mastered shot, or the fear of looking foolish by shooting down the middle, whenever human emotion dictates the action, the player instantly loses their mathematical advantage. And the very structure of the shootout actually amplifies this psychological pressure. The team kicking first wins roughly 60% of the time, leaving the team kicking second with just a 40% win rate. That is a massive structural advantage. Kicking second means you are constantly chasing the game. Every single mistake creates immediate, overwhelming scoreboard pressure. This compounds the mathematical pressure exponentially with every round, making it even harder for the team kicking second to rely on cold logic instead of panicked emotion. So, when you put all of this together, it becomes incredibly clear that a penalty shootout is really simply a calculated optimization problem that's just disguised as a physical sport. Surviving a knockout round isn't about luck at all. It's about which team can best execute a predetermined software update under extreme duress. The teams that spend months studying directional heat maps, randomizing their strategies, and completely suppressing their human egos, those are the ones who invariably survive.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. When you watch the next penalty shootout on the global stage, will you still see a game of luck, or will you see a mathematical algorithm executing in real time? Because I promise you, once you understand the matrix behind the ball, you will never, ever look at this beautiful, nerve-wracking moment the same way again. Thanks